Buenas tardes, buenos días, buenas noches. Yo soy Maryanne Fernandez. Esto es Hoy, sobre todas las cosas. Hoy esto es todo lo que necesitamos es amor. Creo que 15 años después de yo hacer este trabajo, obviamente todo el contenido que he desarrollado ha sido desde una visión amorosa, desde una intención amorosa, pero no siempre nosotros tenemos la oportunidad de tener como invitado, como invitada a una persona resultado absoluto del amor. O sea que el programa de hoy es un programa que yo no tengo palabras para describirlo y no tengo tiempo para hacerlo. Nuestra invitada nació en Las Vegas, Nevada, vive en Nueva York. Desde New York vamos a hacer este programa junto con mi hijo Miguel Ángel Alfonseca Fernández, La Historia de la Verdad, el segmento que él hace todos los viernes. Gracias, Angie. Y Betty Guadagno es la persona que hoy nos contará su historia. Y lo único que yo puedo decirles, porque podría leer un poquito la biografía de ella, pero no lo voy a hacer, lo único que puedo decirle es que la vida de Betty es el resultado total y absoluto del amor infinito de Dios. Yo respeto enormemente las personas que dicen no creo en Dios, lo puedo comprender, pero yo invito a todo el mundo que crea en Dios o no crea, que tenga muchas preguntas sin responder a lo largo de su vida, que escuchen esta entrevista que mi hijo magistralmente va a hacer, esta conversación entre Miguel Ángel y Betty, porque sin duda hoy va a ser un día memorable. Le agradezco a Dios infinitamente esta posibilidad, tener a Betty con nosotros a través de esta tecnología, a Fernando que dirige este programa, a mi hijo que está aquí conmigo, y agradezco a Dios incluirme en esta vida y poder hacer este trabajo. Buenos días, hijo mío.
Buen día. And hello to Betty over there.
Betty, now it's the time you can talk with my son because he has a very good looking English. I'm not. I'm going to be listening and I'm going to be asking too. I just said in this introduce that it's not always that I have the opportunity to talk with someone who really represent the infinity, unconditional love of God, and you are the result of that. So I'm very thankful. I'm very grateful, Betty, that you are here. Open your heart to us.
Okay. Yeah. So I believe we can start. So just you can start. Go ahead and tell your story, and we'll just listen. And at the end, we'll ask you the questions.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you so much. I feel so overwhelmed and so emotional right now. It's interesting. I don't speak Spanish, but I could understand what you were saying. And just hearing that introduction was, it's blowing my mind. So let me tell you who I was before and about my experience. I grew up like a very impoverished, chaotic childhood. Very poor, always moving, no stability. My parents were drug addicts. I dealt with my own addiction in my life. And just to be able to sit somewhere and be heard and to feel like somebody deeply understands my own journey is just so overwhelming to me right now. I've shared dozens of other places, my testimony, but right now I just feel so overwhelmed. It's so beautiful to be able to translate it into another language, to reach a whole different population of people. So my parents were drug addicts. A big part of my story is that when I was 23 years old, my parents both committed suicide together because of their addiction. They were about to be evicted from their apartment. The lights were turned off, the gas was turned off, and this was the only way that they saw out. this unbearable pain that they had inside of them. They thought that everybody would just be better off if they didn't exist. And so they made this very permanent decision to a temporary problem, and they left Earth. And after that happened, my whole life became just completely surrounded with drugs and grabbing at anything that I could to not feel. I just could not handle feeling my feelings. And so I became a drug addict in a way that I never even could have conceived in my mind. Like drugs just, they became my whole personality. I'm like covered in tattoos of liquor bottles and cigarette packs. Like it was my whole personality. Drugs were my life. Alcohol was my life. Men, using people, manipulating, stealing, that was my life. And in 2019, I had a drug overdose and I died and I went to heaven. So I had like this, it was a near-death-like experience. I went to this space of eternity, enveloped in unconditional love, in blinding white light. And I was face to face with a creator that I didn't believe in. I was a militant atheist in my life. I did not believe in anything more because of the way my parents died, especially. And I had endured a lot of trauma as a child, sexual trauma, emotional, physical trauma. And so I just didn't want to believe that there was a God that would allow things like that to happen. And so I just stayed hidden from God until this spiritual experience. And it became very clear to me very fast that my personal pursuit of atheism was misguided. And I was so mad when I got to heaven. I'm probably the only spirit to make it to heaven and actually be upset. But I couldn't believe that I was wrong. It was such a shock to me. And while I was in this space of heaven, of eternity, I was told that I had planned my life before I ever came to Earth. So everything that I had ever felt like I was a victim of, that I had planned it. And I was very dismissive of this idea. Oh, well, there's no way. There's no way that I would plan this or that. Like, what about this trauma? Who would ever pick that? And they told me that I was a divine warrior, that I was sent to Earth on a mission to uplift the consciousness of the planet. And that in order to do that, I had to experience a very dense life so that I could transmute it, come back into the awareness of my divinity, and carry out the rest of my mission. And I was like, wow, this is such a cool story. I'm going back to Earth. There's no way. Like, I'm finally home. You know, the feeling of heaven, that's like the feeling that I had been chasing with drugs my whole life. You know, like this feeling of feeling comforted or feeling good. You know, like it felt like every fractured piece of myself was finally glued back together. Like God was that glue, and there was no way that they were going to make me leave. And so they took me through the inner workings of my pre-birth plan to try to give me a little bit of comfort so that I could come back for the rest of my mission. They showed me, it looked like a grocery store. And there was this man, he was guiding me through the store with an empty grocery cart. And on the aisles of the supermarket that I was in, it was all life experiences in these boxes. They looked like cereal boxes. And so I'm going through the aisles and I'm grabbing all these cereal boxes off the shelf because I'm this soul that's going to Earth and I really want to experience a lot of stuff. And so I grab everything: molestation, rape, poverty, addiction, the double suicide of my parents. That was something that I picked to experience. The partners that I would have all of my emotional, physical, and sexual abuses with in my life, I picked all those boxes. And then I saw the moment when I, as a soul, chose the partners that I would have those experiences with. So not only did I pick the experience, I actually picked the partner that I would have the experience with. And the one that sticks out very vivid in my mind is that the man who sexually molested me as a small child, him and I came into a soul contract together. I saw us both as these beautiful orbs of light, unconditional love. and we came into contract with one another to play these parts in each other's lives. And there was reasons why. One of the reasons why is because in a previous life, I had been his abuser. And so we were balancing out the karma of those lives together. And, you know, like in this moment of being shown all of this information, I instantly shifted out of my victim mentality. And I rose into my divinity as a co-creator of my experience. Things had no longer happened to me, they had happened for me. Because on some soul level, I had chosen it for the evolvement of myself. My ego cannot understand why I would choose such experiences because they don't seem like something you'd want to experience in life. But my soul knows that for the evolvement of itself, for the evolvement of consciousness, it was meant to experience these things. And so I begged and pleaded to stay there. Even though I was given all this information, I said, please don't make me go back to Earth. You know, you guys don't tell us how challenging it actually is. I finally feel like I'm home. Please don't make me go back. I said, I definitely cannot go back into her. She is glitched. She needs way too much healing. There's no way. And they said, well, you don't have to go back into her, meaning me, but you do have to go back. And so we'll show you the baby that you'll be born into because you have to complete your life's lessons. You signed up for a bunch of life lessons, grabbing all of these cereal boxes. You have to complete the cart. And so they showed me this beautiful baby that I would be born into. They showed me everything about her gender, her ethnicity, where she would be born, who her parents were, all of her life challenges and her purpose, her mission. And, you know, this baby, because she had to complete the same life that I had already started, had a lot of the same challenges. And I thought, there is no way that I can start from zero. And it wasn't a punishment, you know, it was like I signed up for something, I have to complete it. And so I said, well, listen, if these are my only options, I'll go back into the body that I came from. And so they sent me back into my awareness and they told me, you know, trust us, your life is not going to be nearly as challenging. You're going to get to the other part of the cereal boxes, the other life experiences, recovery, overcoming, being a writer, being a speaker, being a teacher. Like these are all things that are going to happen for you. Trust us. And I just remember like sifting back into my awareness and saying, I do not trust you. And I came back into my body and I just wrote the entire experience off as drug-induced psychosis. Because who wouldn't? You know, like all I knew was that I took a bunch of drugs and then I thought I was talking to God. And so I just wrote the whole thing off. And then through a series of divine synchronicities, I've realized that this was not some sort of hallucination. This was a real experience that had happened and I really needed to get onto another path. I experienced a spontaneous healing out of heroin withdrawal. I mean, like I was so sick. I was writhing in pain. I was on day 3 of having no drugs available to me. And, you know, I had this thought and I said, man, I couldn't even kill myself if I wanted to because I'm so sick that I can't even get out of bed to figure out a way to kill myself. And in that moment, I heard a voice and it told me that I could request what I wanted fixed. And I said that I wanted to be healed out of this pain, that I wanted to no longer be physically dependent on heroin. And I saw these 2 little men appear in my mind's eye, and they started mapping out every crevice of my mind. They had these little lawnmowers, and as they were going through with these lawnmowers, I felt these intense hot tingles fill up the crown of my head. And then in a bright white flash, I was instantaneously healed out of day 3 of heroin withdrawal. I mean, like moments before, I was sick all over myself, coming from both ends. My skin was on fire. It felt like my bones were made of broken glass, hot and cold flashes. And then all of a sudden, I was completely well. And I fell to my knees and I was crying out to God, how could this be happening? I don't believe in this. I don't believe in you. How could this be happening to me? You could not have picked a more unworthy subject. You know, like the person that I was in that moment, I was a drug addict. I was a prostitute. I was on the verge of homelessness. I was an orphan to suicide. I was a liar, a manipulator, a thief. I was all of the things that you would think make you unworthy of unconditional love and grace. And here I was being bestowed with it. And so I knew that I had to get onto a different path. And so I found myself on a train. I had no destination. I didn't know what I was doing or what was going on. And this man appeared across from me, and he was wearing a 12-step fellowship necklace, a recovery community necklace. And I heard a voice, and it said, "That's your path. Follow him to a meeting." And that's been my life ever since. I found myself in a long-term rehab to get well from my drug addiction. I stayed there. It was long term. I stayed there for 1.5 years, which is completely insane. Such a long time to be away, but I really had no tools on how to be a person. You know, I watched, my whole family showed me how to be a drug addict. Nobody ever told me how to not be one. And so I really had to learn everything from scratch. Also, because of this spiritual experience, I had no idea what was going on to me. And so I had this insatiable thirst for knowledge. I read every sacred text while I was in that safe rehab. I had all of this space to heal and feel and learn and grow. And so that's what I did while I was there. I read every sacred text. I read everything I could get my hands on about metaphysics and the law of attraction. And I began to manifest my reality. And I realized that I've always been manifesting my reality. My thoughts before were, I'm poor, I'm dirty, I'm a prostitute, I'm a drug addict. And so that was my reality. And today my thoughts are different. I'm an abundant individual. I have a beautiful community in my life. I have a wonderful home. I have a career in the recovery field. I assist other people on their healing journeys today. I mean, like, if you would have known me before, I was the most selfish person that ever existed. And I lived in my victim mode. I was allowed to do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, because heinous things have happened to me in my life. And today, I don't feel that way. Today, I crave to be of service to other people. And the universe, source, God, has given me an opportunity to live my life that way by being of service to others. And, you know, for me, if spiritual transformation is possible for me, I know that it's literally possible for anyone. There are no words in the human language to explain to you what kind of depraved animal I was before my spiritual experience. But it's not the person that's sitting here today. And if that's possible for me, I know that it's possible for anyone. And thank you so much for letting me share this very vulnerable piece of myself with you today.
Betty, we are just starting. Estamos apenas empezando. Tenemos que ir a una pausa. Cuando regresemos, hay muchas preguntas. Creo que hay más preguntas de las que teníamos planeadas, porque yo escuché y vi la historia de Betty en un canal de YouTube que comparto con mi hijo, pero ahora, a pesar de que estaba tomando fotos, estaba tomando videos, escuché cosas nuevas y ahora tengo más preguntas. Betty Guadagno está aquí con nosotros desde New York. Vamos a una pausa, ya regresamos. Esto es La Historia de la Verdad.